Viewers, thank you so much for being with us on this edition of the news. Good evening to all of you, and we begin right away with our major stories as usual. The soul of Martinez Zogo might still be wondering, as there are several differences on his burial. A set fraction of the family has come up with a burial program which has been denied or rejected by another faction claiming to be still from the family. And we are talking about Martinez Zogo's real family. We will be coming back to those differences on the burial program of Martinez Zogo in this edition of the news. Plus, several heads of state of the Semak region began meeting in Cameroon's nation's capital, Yaoundé, today. What are the stakes of this meeting of Semak heads of state? Stay with us for details and more. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for always according us your time for the news every 6 p.m. in the English language. Several inhabitants of the Bois de Singe neighborhood here in the economic capital, Douala, many of whom are displaced persons from the northwest and the southwest regions, are at the verge of seeing their investments crushed to nothing. This is as a result of a planned demolition exercise expected to take place in the area any time from now. Immaculate Fogwe was there. She now tells us more.
These Red Cross marks, painted on houses in the Bois de Singe neighborhood by workers of the Douala Urban Council, is the reason behind this railing and protest demonstration. Holding placards, residents are denouncing a planned demolition exercise.
The Dio have been called down here at the carrier, where the Dio come and notify us that only 8 houses will be broken down because of the road. And those that will be broken down, all of them, they will be compensated. We accepted. They went further from 8 houses to 40 houses, from 40 houses to 45 houses, from 45 to 50 houses.
They are decrying what they qualify as exploitation on the part of these individuals who are conniving with some authorities to chase them away from a land which they have invested millions of francs CFA on.
You get it, Bois de Singe, all this place was being owned by monkeys. When we come here, all it was forest. We have walked here, put a drive out the water far away for us to stay. Since 2008, and you can see the profile of this place is over 4 meters deep. The price of canoe, 1 canoe is how much? It costs a lot. So now they will come after every place have been made ready, and they think that they will snatch it like that. It will be impossible.
Nobody living here bought this land. We came here just as we saw others coming to develop this area, because our former government delegate told us that you people are Cameroonians. You have the right to build in government lands. And except when the government will come one day to tell you, the people, that this land does not belong to you. If he wants to make infrastructures like hospitals and roads, you people will go. And an individual will not come here and drive you people away. But today, it is the contrary.
Residents, many of whom fled from the conflict-hit northwest and southwest regions, say they are now frustrated and do not know where to start from.
We have the Anglophones who have been driven out by Ambazonians from northwest and southwest. All of them are refugees here. And they have invested their little money that they have in their own pocket in order to sustain a living. Where else will they go? At home they are not at peace. Here in Douala they are not at peace.
In the course of our investigations, we are informed that the demolition exercise is meant to give way for the construction of drainage patterns. Several houses have already been demolished, with others still in the process.
And now torture, barbaric acts are said to be coming the order of the day in some parts of Cameroon. The most recent case is that of Volvang, a 33-year-old man who was brutally beaten by security guards of the Lamido of Cheboa. Cheboa is a locality in the Benue division of the North region of Cameroon, a situation the local population are denouncing because of its reoccurrence. Let's now have more with Lucille Yengu is here.
Woodvan, a 33-year-old young man, is a victim of severe torture. According to sources, he was kidnapped by the guards on duty at the Lamidat of Chebwa. Woodvan received 120 lashes, which is confirmed by the large patches of wounds left on his behind. After beating, he was abandoned without food nor water. He explains he was cracking jokes with a friend and a third party intruded. He asked why he had to involve himself in the discussion, and a third party replied, "Why shouldn't I involve myself?" The next day, they picked him up, took him to the Lamidat of Chebwa, but the Lamido did not show up. Suddenly he was beaten. He received 120 strokes. After that, he was thrown into the sea with no water, no food to eat. This situation, the population say, is alarming and critical, as the Lamido of Chebwa has been accused severally of being a subject of criminal conviction. After several investigations, it is worth noting that this is not the first time such an incident is happening at the Lamidat of Chebwa. A few months ago, a young man from Yagwa was fatally beaten by security guards of the Lamido of Chebwa. Another incident happened on August 26, 2015, when the Lamido of Chebwa was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for illegal arrest, torture, and murder of a young man. The population has severally denounced the acts of human rights violation and abuse of power by the Lamido of Chebwa. The population call on judicial authority to look into the situation so that such barbaric acts can come to an end.
Meanwhile, we also got information that an orphan of about or less than 10 years old has been severely beaten by his guardian, that is in Chang, the Menwa division of the West Region Shore. We will be coming back with the details in our subsequent news editions. Now, talking about something else, not only Douala is very filthy, the Northwest Regional headquarters of Bamenda is said to be in deplorable state, and there are heaps of piles of debt at every street corner in Bamenda. Let's now have how it happens, how the image of Bamenda right now it feels with our regional-based correspondent Bustela.
These tires have been placed to block garbage from taking over the nearby carpentry workshop. This distance indicates how much of the road has been taken over by the decomposing waste. The disputed road has been reduced to almost a footpath, with the garbage extending from the Behind-Chen neighborhood to the main road leading to Tarington. Every day is a nightmare for road users. See how ugly it looks. The people are blocking the garbage from overtaking their businesses. We can't stand there. It stinks. Whenever I ride my bike to T Junction and look at this garbage, I feel sad. The garbage has been here for over 3 months. The odor from the garbage really disturbs us. Neighborhoods are literally drowning in garbage. Road junctions and the streets have been filled up with piles of stinking garbage. Tons of decomposing waste have been abandoned on the roads, with growing fears that the garbage menace could lead to health issues. The flies on the garbage can equally land on our food. That is the source of illnesses. It is also the habitat of mosquitoes, which can give us malaria. It's affecting our businesses. The whole of this area is dead because of the garbage. We want the authorities to clear this area of garbage.
Do something. You can't remove this dirty.
This is to poison us. City dwellers say the Cape Bamenda clean spirit could be revived, as the increasing amount of stinking garbage is fast becoming a symbol of anger towards the authorities.
With that program,
During the days of Keep Bamenda Clean, we usually clean our surroundings. We didn't have these piles of garbage. Since Hizakam and others came in, we've been having garbage piles on the streets. With the rainy season fast approaching, Bamenda city dwellers say garbage will soon flow into their homes. They are calling on the authorities to treat the garbage situation of the city of Bamenda as an emergency.
And now, viewers, we move over to one of our lead stories. The soul of Martinez Zogo might still be wondering because of differences on his burial program. A faction of his family has come up with a burial program which is being denied or rejected by another faction which claims to be his real family. Let's now have more with Mala Glory.
After the arrest and the detention of the first suspect in the kidnapped and torture of Martinez Zogo, which led to his death, the funeral service of the journalist is the new friction among family members that calls for attention. The stepsister to Martinez Zogo, Crescent Mogu, wants Martinez to be buried. The first phase of the burial program was done by the latter, and now she made public a burial program of Martinez Zogo for next month, April 1st. On a phone chat with Martinez's stepsister, Crescent Mogu, she explains to Equinoxe television that the burial will permit them to perform some traditional rites. These rituals, she says, will help to determine the cause of the journalist's death and to break the misfortune plaguing the family through tragic deaths and bloodshed. An argument which is not welcomed by Martinez Zogo's partner and his other sister, Germaine Flor Messina. For this reason, lawyers of the deceased say they are not in connection with the burial program made public. They say it is the widow's responsibility to organize the burial program and equally ask that an autopsy be done to determine the cause of Martinez Zogo's death. As for Germaine, Martinez Zogo's stepsister, whom we contacted, said off camera that the burial program circulating is a shame to the family. She adds that the exact burial program of Martinez Zogo is still to be fixed.
And in politics, heads of states of the CEMAC region began arriving Yaoundé today ahead of their meeting with the president of Cameroon and other heads of states of the CEMAC region. The debate on the franc CFA continues as the heads of states meet to discuss the issue and others tomorrow. We talked with an economist, and Babila Jonathan compiled this report for the news following the debate on the franc CFA and CEMAC member countries.
Can the Central African sub-region repatriate all its foreign reserves and separate from the French Central Bank? In response to this question on the franc CFA currency and dependence of Central African nations on the treasury of France, CEMAC Commission Chairman Daniel Ona Ondo said, there are small countries that have their currencies, so having a national or regional currency is a matter of sovereignty. To him, the CEMAC member countries can do without the Bank of France. But economist Dr. Simon Ndomilep says,
comme les gouvernements africains ne semblent pas être capables de voir la gravité de cette situation,
it will not change anything because
on rapatrie les comptes d'opération à la BA.
The foreign reserves will be transferred to the Bank of Central African States and not to individual countries' central banks that do not even exist.
Donc vous comprenez que c'est du pipeau.
He refers to the Bank of Central African States as a colonial bank serving the interests of France, which he describes as a parasite eating fat on its former colonies.
En réalité, la situation normale de tout État souverain, c'est d'avoir sa banque centrale.
He adds that the appropriate solution to the franc CFA currency problem is that As it should be the case with every sovereign state, Central African countries should have their central banks, the reserves transferred to each country's central bank, and then national currencies or a strong regional currency established.
Nous avons des agences de la Banque de France chez nous qui agit dans l'intérêt des Français.
We will be talking more about the stakes of the meeting of CEMAC member countries' head of states that should be in the second part of the news. Now we talk sports. The success story of Senegal on the continent, which has given them 4 trophies, has been linked to the good management of the federation by Augustin Senghor. These declarations were made by Dr. Mohamed Gandou, who is a sports consultant with the BBC and Senegalese sports reporter also with the BBC Czech Tidiane Diagne. In an interview they granted to our reporter Smart Jikangibril.
Senegalese Football Federation hold the record of becoming the only African country to simultaneously hold the continent's 2 most prestigious trophies, the Africa Cup of Nations and the African Nations Championship. To add to these 2, the beach soccer team of Senegal are the title holders, and most recently it was the Teranga Cups who beat the Gambia 2-0 to claim the Under-20 African Nations Cup in Egypt, bringing up the trophy haul to 4. Dr. Mohamed Gandou, sports consultant with the BBC, says the sudden rise of Senegal in the continent is because of the confidence given to the man at the helm of the federation, Augustin Senghor, and the national technical staff.
C'est d'abord donc la continuité.
The success story first goes to the continuity of those managing football in the country. We start with the Senegalese Football Federation, whose president, Augustin Senghor, has made the federation to be one that can bring success. And secondly, we should not forget the work of the National Technical Direction that has done so much in training the coaches. Today, we talk of the success story of Senegal. It's thanks to the training of local coaches.
La formation des entraîneurs, donc des entraîneurs locaux, des entraîneurs du cru, et ça a été une deuxième étape en fait dans ce processus-là.
For another Senegalese, Cheikh Tidiane Diagne, journalist with the BBC, he thinks the strength of Senegal on the African scene is because of the professional football league that was reinstated and the challenge that was given to the other selections by the Teranga Lions, who won the Africa Cup of Nations in Yaoundé, Cameroon, 2022.
Cette montée en puissance du football sénégalais s'explique par le fait qu'on travaille.
The rise of Senegal is a proof that serious work has been done by the football authorities, and it all started with the launching of the Professional Football League. All had noticed that football back at home had dropped. The federation at one point placed so much importance on the national football team because they believe they have the secret to boost the other categories. That is why immediately the senior team won the trophy. It's a challenge for the other selections.
Donc aujourd'hui, ce qui explique un petit peu, disons, cette nouvelle dynamique victorieuse constatée en tout cas dans le football sénégalais au niveau de toutes les catégories.
With 4 trophies already in their keeping, the Senegalese Football Federation is now expecting to get a 5th trophy when the Under-17 team ends their participation at the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations that will be hosted by Algeria in the month of April.
Thank you so much, Smart. And that sports report brings us to the end of the first part of the news. Don't go away. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is an economist, Song Derrick. We thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. We are talking about the meeting of heads of states of CEMAC member countries. They began arriving in Yaoundé today ahead of their meeting, which begins tomorrow. Derek, we might want to find out from you as an economist, as the heads of state began meeting in Yaoundé early today. Do you think one of the topics which should be put on their table as from tomorrow should be about the sub-regional integration, talking about xenophobia? We know recently some Cameroonians were sent out of neighboring Equatorial Guinea. There has been this rift between some countries in the CEMAC bloc. And why have some heads of states been quiet about this xenophobia and this sub-regional integration, which seems not to be advancing?
To be on your platform, special thanks to the management of Equinoxe Television for their wonderful job they are doing to inform the citizens. Coming to your question, you just asked about the heads of states meeting. This is not the first, this is not the second, and certainly will not be the last. And the idea of you talking about them to discuss about the sub-regional integration, I accept and believe with you that it is very, very important for the heads of state to discuss about sub-regional integration. If you want to measure the strength of every country in the world, it is in the bloc. The strength in the country is measured by the nature and the degree of the bloc they are formed. Let's take for instance, European Union. Her strength is coming from the fact that a good number of countries have come together to form a bloc that makes trade profitable for all the countries that are member states, NATO and the others. So it will be an opportunity for Africa this time to put on the table the discussion of forming a very solid, strong sub-regional bloc, given that Africa needs a free trade area because they are made up of small countries, small economies, and small markets. And the moment they talk about coming together, these small countries, small economies, and small markets will join together to form a very huge market that will be profitable to all the member states of Africa. So I do think that the heads of state must take as an opportunity, a chance, and a duty to talk about them forming a very solid sub-regional bloc. Why not talking about Africa coming together as a whole to form a union that will compete with the West and make her economy very, very strong and buoyant? Because the success of every continent is in its unity, and Africa has for so long been divided over things that should have instead united them. What is happening in Tunisia is so disheartening. It pains my heart to notice that Africans are fighting against Africa. It pains me to know that the enemy destroying us is not from outside but from within. But what saddens mostly is the fact that the head of state of the concerned countries have so far not spoken. It is time enough for them to come out and condemn what is happening in Tunisia. We cannot have people who are in the African territory, African location, sending out other African country citizens because of color, because of body, or maybe their skin color. The skin color is beginning to divide us, whereas what unites us is stronger than what should divide us. Why they are quiet is a question that you, the journalists, can go back to them during this meeting, as they are holding it in Yaoundé, and ask them, why have you been quiet? Why your own brothers are sending away brothers from a brotherly country, from the same continent. It is sad, and I might not have so much to talk about that, but to send you back the journalists to go to them and ask them why they are quiet.
And now, Derek, coming closer more to your domain, which is economy, there is also this issue of the France CFA. For some time now, CEMAC member countries have been expressing some spite somehow about the France CFA. They want to have their own currency. Do you think that the presidents who are meeting in Yaoundé this time around might have the courage to talk about that? What do you think? If not, why? Why not?
The issue of currency in Africa, especially French Africa, has been a very laughable one. When I say laughable, it's because our independence and dependence is hardly distinguished. What do I mean by that? You realize that we are using the CFA francs, which is a currency that is coming from France, who formerly were using the French francs and are presently using the euro. And the CFA francs that was pegged to the French francs is now pegged to the euro. Meaning that Africans, especially the French African colonies, do not have a decision on their own. And it will be eminent for the head of states to gather, especially at a moment where anti-French sentiments are growing wild, to talk about stopping the currency. We cannot negotiate anything on our own terms if we do not have control over the currency we use. Let's take, for instance, African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and others, South Africa, where they use a currency that they control themselves. They are liable and able to communicate and negotiate terms of agreement in the market. This is not the same situation with French African countries in the CEMAC region, where they use the CFA francs that do not have any autonomy on its own. So it will be very important that the head of state should talk about the possibility, the feasibility of making their own currency. And this should not be limited to the CEMAC region, ECAS, and others. Africa needs to come as one man, as one person, negotiate a common currency that will cut across the African continent in order to be able to withstand the Western hegemony that has dominated us for a very long time. If this is not done, we will keep negotiating our pay packages in foreign currency that finally will be paid in our own currency that has no value.
And now, Derek, talking about currency, some African countries like the Central African Republic have already adopted cryptocurrency, but that is still like a taboo somehow in most countries in Africa, Cameroon inclusive. Don't you think it is time we also take a look at that with the changing times, or can cryptocurrency have a long or short-term negative effect on our economy?
To see how it works and how to control the movement of cash, because every economy must learn how to control the circulation of cash, inflow and outflow. For the cryptocurrency so far, in the Western world, it is easier to control, but it is not the same in Africa, given that our technological advancement is still archaic and we are still living somewhere around the 19th century. And if we want to implement it, we must step up by accepting the changes and putting the systems that goes along with the changes.
And now to my very last question, Derek. The president of these CEMAC member countries, or the CEMAC bloc, most of the countries, the French-speaking countries which have French as their major language, their first language, they have had this issue of anti-French sentiments lately, especially talking about Burkina Faso and also Mali, where the local population actually went out like publicly to protest against the presence of France. And we remember Emmanuel Macron, who is a French president, actually came out to say that his troops are going to withdraw. That would be in a month or so from, I think that was Burkina Faso. Don't you think that it's time for the presidents of CEMAC member countries, we are talking about countries which have France as their colonial masters, is it not time for them to think about the preoccupation of their local population about these anti-French sentiments and try to have a rethink?
First was colonialism in its traditional form, then came neo-colonialism. And if you see what France is doing now, they are bringing in a form of tertiary colonialism, that if the heads of states are not wise, we may fall into another deep shit of the French grip. It has taken us so long to resist and deny the French domination. I'm grateful for the movements in Burkina Faso and Mali, where the new generation have risen to say no to French hegemony and French domination. This is just another opportunity, so to say, that the heads of states are having to discuss modalities to kick out France from Africa. The reason why I say discuss modalities, because to kick out France from Africa, it's going to be quite difficult because they have a heavy grip, and an individual cannot do that job. So if the heads of states are coming together, it is presenting to them an opportunity on a platter of gold to talk about methods, modalities, ways in which they can use in order to drive away the French domination. Remember, France is a very poor, rich country. Let me explain myself why I mean by a very poor, rich country. France has no gold mine, but they have a very rich gold store. What is happening? They are getting it from Africa. Reason why I'm saying they practically have nothing in their French territory, but they have a lot of rich resources. Where are those rich resources coming from? They are coming from Africa. So it is an opportunity for the head of state to talk within themselves, whisper within themselves, to find a modality to stop the activities of France. But unfortunately, you and I know why they will not talk. Because most of them are puppets. Most of them are presidents in Africa, in French Africa, because they are being given accords from France. Reason why you cannot bite the finger that fits you. It's an...
Thank you so much, Song Derek, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. And hopefully some of those issues that we have highlighted be put on the tables of the presidents of the CEMAC region. That would be as from tomorrow during their meeting in Yaoundé. Viewers, we thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away. As usual, our programs continue in about 30 minutes. Equinoxe Soir and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.
If you suspect you may have a coronavirus infection, please call your healthcare provider in advance.